Ken Wilber is still a very dogmatic idealist. And so this distorts his view of what enlightenment is. And he also tends to think that Buddhism and the East has some kind of a monopoly on enlightenment, which they do not have. And so he has overglorified this one tradition and its ideas and overblown them to the point where he doesn't really have what I would call an integral understanding of religion. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. I noticed on some of my integral maps that on some of the developmental lines, the map starts with Piaget and then ends in Aurobindo. And so I went and I asked Don Beck what he thought about this, what he thought about Aurobindo's Eastern spiritual mystical ideas as representing some kind of possible third tier of awakening. And he basically said that it's a bunch of crap.
I reject all of this. Ken Wilber's assumption that mystics represent the highest stages of development and the integration of Aurobindo's third tier stages. It's yet another example of Wilber's attempt to exploit the Graves model and spiral dynamics. He lacks entirely the seventh code of integral, and has no idea how, when, where each of the codes have emerged. I will gladly challenge him to a public debate, but he still hides out in his loft in Denver. The whole idea of tiers is uniquely language from our work, which he steals in order to market his. The man lacks any ethical basis when he does so. He is nothing beyond red-orange. If he wants to develop his own systems, then he should do so without exploiting my lifetime of work, which he continues to do. Our seventh and now emerging eighth code, second tier, are functional, resolve real-world problems, and emerge out of life conditions, not out of some mystical realm from Eastern viewpoints which belong to those cultures, not Western societies. The eighth code is beginning to take shape. It will not be the sixth code, green, on steroids, as many in the integral world believe. Don Beck.
He seemed very unhappy with it. Let's just say that. Now, I really like Wilber, and I really like Don Beck, and I'm not here to trash anybody. The reason I care is because these are the reasons I cared about getting into integral theory in the first place. Because having an integral understanding of what religion is supposed to be, having an integral understanding of enlightenment, having an integral understanding of comparative mythology was important to me. And that's why I'm here talking about it today. Because I do think that we're not really doing it that skillfully, and we're kind of messing it up. And that's also why a lot of other people are not taking us seriously, and why our integral community is filled with Eastern mystics, which, you know, I have no problem with. But this is a philosophy, serious philosophy, not a spiritual New Age cult. And so I would like to push it more back in the way of serious philosophy and get away from the New Age cult stuff, which I think is important if we're going to have integral integrity and a healthy integral religion of the future, which I really care about.
Is it possible that the universe is infinite and there is nothing transcendent?
There is perfection. Perfection can be achieved. The universe, in a sense, completes itself.
Problems of anthropomorphism and infinite regress. Do we really think that there's some kind of ultimate goal of evolution to where it's going, or is it just to try to create a more healthy and sustainable world in the meantime?
I definitely argue and believe that the universe is going somewhere, and where it's going is increasingly toward the infinite. In other words, that there will be a completion of evolution. Perfection will be achieved. Evolutionary potentials will be exhausted. Free will creatures discovering perfection by their own lights and gradually participating in the project of perfecting the universe and the afterlife. We will eventually transcend time, transcend the finite universe in our spiritual ascension. Humans and spiritual beings as ascenders in time will transcend to another universe age. And that's getting pretty woo. Now that's cosmological speculation. I don't claim to have any special knowledge about what the truth of that is. This is kind of my belief system. It's not a specific teaching of evolutionary spirituality, but again, this is a belief system. I have to bracket that a little bit. I don't know whether that's a satisfactory answer, which needs to stab. Okay.
Who else has a question?
Yeah.
Even in his statement, he says he brackets it.
I have to bracket that a little bit.
But then he also immediately says there is perfection.
Just because there is perfection. Free will creatures discovering perfection by their own lights and gradually participating in the project of perfecting the universe.
And we are working on perfection. So he's already starting from these assumptions about where we're coming from and where we're going. So instead of having a talk that's supposed to be in light of what we know about science, he's preaching basically his belief system and trying to pass that off as what evolutionary spirituality is.
This is kind of my belief system. It's not a specific teaching of evolutionary spirituality. This project of bringing the infinite back into the finite in our experience is an important part of what evolutionary spirituality understands as the purpose of humans here on Earth. I have to bracket that a little bit. Bringing the infinite back into the finite is an important part of what evolutionary spirituality understands as the purpose of humans. This is kind of my belief system. It's not a specific teaching of evolutionary spirituality. Is an important part of what evolutionary spirituality understands. This is kind of my belief system. It's not a specific teaching of evolutionary spirituality.
Yeah, I would imagine that for many of you, that's probably enough said. You probably can see that there's tons of problems with that. But for those of you who might agree with him or have some of these similar positions, I'm going to explain in detail the issues that I take with this perspective.